So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We're just waiting for one more panelist to join us, but hopefully they'll log in as we start. So I'm Rob Burley. I'm Director of Campaigns, Care and Support at Muscular Dystrophy UK. And this is the second of two online seminars that MDUK is holding this afternoon as part of our Muscles Matter online seminar series, Living with a Muscle Wasting Condition in 2020 and Beyond. So this evening we're focusing on assistive and accessible technology, which many people living with muscle wasting conditions utilise across all areas of their lives. So in this series of 12 seminars, we're exploring what it's like to live with a muscle wasting condition in these unprecedented times. And I'm getting a little bit bored of saying that word, but it really sort of keeps hammering home to me just with the situation we're sort of living through. 6 of the seminars are exploring specific conditions which are aligned to awareness days, weeks and months that are taking place. So we've just had a session this afternoon on Duchenne muscular dystrophy. The remaining 6 are looking at a range of topics that are relevant to anyone affected by muscle wasting conditions. And last week we explored living in a world with COVID-19. And today, obviously, we're discussing assistive technology, and the list of remaining seminars and the link to go to if you want to book onto further sessions should be on your screen now. MDUK is holding these seminars because for now, we're unable to bring our community together through our information days, our family fun days, our national conferences, and also our muscle groups, which are small local groups for people to come together. I'd really like to emphasize, though, that our helpline remains available to anyone affected by a muscle wasting condition. And do please contact us if you have any questions or would like any support or information. So we can provide a range of information and provide a number of resources, and can either support you directly or certainly signpost you to someone who can provide you with support. The number and email address should be on your screen now, or you can call us on 0800 652 6352, and our email is info@musculardystrophyuk.org. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who supported our work through volunteering their time. Obviously, the most current example of that is today's panel, or through making a donation. We're hugely indebted to everyone who's helped us to ensure that we can continue delivering activity like today's session. There are a vast array of ways in which you can support MDUK, so do please contact us if you'd like to explore that, or visit our website and make a donation if you wish to. So before we welcome our first panel, a note on how you can ask questions or make comments throughout this evening's session. So many of you have submitted some questions in advance, so we'll seek to cover those later as we go through the discussion. But we'd also like to incorporate some sort of live questions and live input. And to do that, we're using the Q&A function that you should be able to see at the bottom of your screen. So please type your question or comment, and I'll feed that into the discussion. To help us manage the technical side of the event, we won't be calling on questioners to ask their questions directly. And any questions we don't manage to cover or that we don't know the answer to, we'll seek to answer through our website afterwards. And finally, a reminder that we're recording the session and that we're going to be made available on our website within the next 24 hours so that other people can view it as well. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our fantastic panel who've given their time to join us this evening. I'll introduce them in one go now, and then I'll turn to them each in turn to say a few words before we open out to a discussion and questions. So I'm very pleased to be joined by Alice Black, who is MDUK's Grants Officer. And Alice has supported people through MDUK's helpline with queries about assistive technology, and has also helped in the past to administer the distribution of grant funding that we managed to secure to help people access assistive technology. We're hoping to be joined by, he's joined us excellent, I was on a different screen, Vivek, hello. So Vivek Gohil has joined us. He is living with a muscle wasting condition and is a passionate user of assistive tech and a gamer and a blogger as well. So welcome to Vivek. Jay Tuck is an assistive technology specialist at Smartbox Assistive Technology. So Jay's worked in assistive technology since 2008, working in a special needs school and then installing telecare across Hampshire before supporting adults with learning disabilities. In his role at Smartbox now, he visits individuals at home, at school or at work to enable them to trial devices. And I think that's a question we've already had in advance, so that's useful to know already. And Smartbox specialises in communication, computer control and environment control with a variety of access methods ranging from eye gaze through things like wheelchair, joysticks and more. And then our sort of final panel member this evening is Vedran Podobnik from Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Vedran leads the teams of data scientists and engineers that advise organizations on how to solve their most complex problems in the area of data analytics and artificial intelligence. He's executed some multi-year IT research, development and innovative programs delivered on an international scale. He's also founder and director of the Social Lab, which is an organization that gathers academics and businesses interested in developing innovative data-driven products and services based on artificial intelligence and machine learning. So as I said, I'm going to invite each of our panelists to make a few remarks about their experience of assistive and accessible tech, and then we'll open up to questions. So do please use the Q&A function throughout. So Alice, I wonder if I could start with you, and perhaps you could give us some examples of the kind of assistive and accessible technology that people sort of come to MDUK for questions about, and the kind of advice we've given in the past.
Yes, thank you. So the types of assistive tech that people come to us about at MDUK are actually quite wide-ranging, really. It can be anything from smart home and environmental controls to communication aids, robotic meter readers, adapted gaming equipment, eye gaze technology, as you mentioned. So, for example, we all know how much of life is online or computer-based these days. Well, especially these days, but even before the current situation, a lot of the people that we speak to are very active in online communities. You know, they're using social media to keep in touch with everyone. Maybe they're bloggers or campaigners. We all have entertainment on our computers. We're streaming films, music, there's online gaming. But sometimes a muscle wasting condition can make it difficult to use standard computer equipment, such as maybe a mouse or a keyboard. And that's where something like the eye gaze technology really comes in, using the cameras to track eye movement and then translate it into the movement of a cursor on screen. We've also had a lot of questions in regards to things like the speech to text software, which is particularly popular with people like students who are writing essays, people who find they communicate a lot online, need to maybe write a lot of emails. I know one of our campaigners uses it, and he said that it's really boosted his communications, because before it could take up to an hour to type out an email using the keyboard. Now he can dictate it and send it using the speech to text. We find also that works, of course, both ways. There was someone else who contacted us about using it because she was deaf and wanted to make communication between herself and friends and family, particularly younger family members who are maybe just learning to talk. She wanted to make that communication easier, and also to have her healthcare team communicate directly with her rather than having to relay everything through someone else, which she said she could find a bit isolating at times, almost being, it felt like she wasn't in the conversation. She also did mention that she was going to use the tech on a tablet at her upcoming wedding so that she could read the vows as the registrar was speaking them, which struck me as a particularly lovely application of the technology, and just really showed how it can kind of be used in every part of life, really. The other thing that I mentioned that's particularly popular are the smart home controls. So they're popular because they do make home life that much easier and they afford more independence. There have been a couple of families, for example, where the kids are getting a bit older, growing up, and they're really keen to start experiencing some of that independence. And the home tech can help with that because it gives them control over their own environment. So using smart plugs, smart light bulbs, automated blinds, for example, and everything controlled through an app on your tablet, on your smartphone, or even through a hub like the Amazon Echo or the Google Home Hub, which allow voice control commands. for example, there was a person in his late teens who's living with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and he found that he was straining his eyes by focusing on a bright screen in a darkened room, because like a lot of teenagers, he was staying up after his parents had gone to sleep, gaming online. But for him, his parents had to switch the lights off before they went to bed, or he'd have to have them on all night, making it difficult to sleep. So now he's got a smart bedroom. It's full of Alexa-enabled devices. So he's got complete control over his environment. You know, he manages it all using voice commands. He doesn't have to rely on anyone else for things like switching his lights on and off or opening his curtains. And he doesn't have to stick to anyone else's timetable. You know, he is in control as he wants to be, you know, as he gets a bit older. So yeah, they're just a few examples. As I say, it is very wide ranging, and I know that the other panel members will be able to go into a lot more detail in their various areas and fields. So that's just a brief overview of the kind of thing that we get through MDUK.
Thanks, Alice. That was really useful. I think two things really stood out for me: that theme of empowerment and independence, and the power of assistive technology to help that. And I think I'm sure that we can re-explore over the rest of the session. So thank you very much. Vivek, can I turn to you next as a user of assistive technology, and kind of perhaps you can give us some examples of the kind of tech that you use and that you've blogged about as well. That'd be great to hear a bit more about that.
Yes, well, I've got Duchenne and I'm 30 now, so I've had a lot of experience going through different stages and how all the different stages affect me through technology. But I think it's about the last 10 years when I've started to have problems accessing technology, and that is very difficult to kind of set a routine, really, and find out ways. But I'd say about 5 years ago, I'm quite a big gamer, and kind of at that time I was having problems playing games with my PS4 controller, and I thought really the only thing that I could do was give up, because I didn't know what was out there. So I think with technology, if you're disabled, there's a lot of kind of unknowns there. You have to try it out yourself. You can't really just buy it off the shelf. So it's taken me quite a few years to get the right kind of gaming setup through charities like Special Effect, who they came down and they kind of had all this accessibility equipment about for gaming. So it was through that I found out about accessibility in gaming. But what I found is that finding the right technology was very difficult for me, because I bought a lot of stuff from Amazon thinking, oh, this will help me, but then when you get it at home, you think, oh, it doesn't. So it was very difficult for me, because I swapped from using a laptop to a desktop computer, and for like for about 10 years I couldn't use a mouse. So I was thinking, oh, I'm not going to be able to use my computer, but I managed to find kind of the right mouse. And also I found that with technology, what's important sometimes isn't the technology, it's how you kind of move your body with the technology, because kind of with my mouse, I can't hold it normally on a table with one hand, but I've got these two pads on my hands that kind of raise my hands up so they're hovering over the mouse. So that's very important for me. But again, not a lot of this equipment for kind of gaming or technology is out there. kind of, we have to find it out ourselves, which sometimes can be very difficult and challenging because like we're going through different changes with muscular dystrophy, and over the years, kind of I've become very dependent on technology because like I do blogging and kind of I've done a lot of my work on the computer. I play games on the computer as well as my PlayStation, and I kind of review games about from the accessibility side for people with muscular dystrophy or like other mobility issues. So I had to use kind of multiple forms of how I write. Most of the time I use my mouse. I use on-screen keyboard, and I'm pretty good with that. But I do get very tired often, so I have to use like dictation on my computer as well. Because I think what it is, I've realized that while I'm doing stuff with the technology in my life, I need kind of, the technology is helping me to kind of reserve my limited energy, because without the technology, I wouldn't at all be able to do everything I do, even talking now, because I can use a computer, I can communicate, and I find that my communication and kind of expressing myself on the computer is really important to me, because when I thought I had to give up gaming, I realized how important gaming was, because my mom was saying like I'm very depressed and I was different, and it was really upsetting. But through that, through MDUK, I kind of worked with Microsoft to kind of test the accessibility equipment. That was very good 3 years ago, the Xbox Adaptive Controller. There's been a lot of progress on that in that aspect, helping gamers. And I think what I realized that sometimes you think you have to give up, but then there is something there to support you. But I thought like I was the only person going through it and other people wouldn't. But through that, there's a lot of accessibility kind of support from a lot more companies now. So I think at the time I gave up, it was just starting to bubble up, this accessibility, but now it's gone quite high. But when it comes to gaming, I am a bit afraid at the minute, because there's a new console coming out, and they have different controllers, which some of the features may be quite difficult for kind of me or gamers with, but I think hopefully in the future that will change. We'll find out more information really. So that's kind of what I've been doing, and how I've worked with MDK for technology. And I think MDK has helped me kind of a lot to grow in the technology field, because without kind of you, I wouldn't really have found out about what Microsoft is doing with their adaptive control.
Thank you very much, Vivek. I think really fascinating insights into the kind of the tech you use and the journey you've been on as well. Really fascinated again by the kind of the sense of independence and community that assistive tech has allowed you to sort of re-engage in, and hearing that you had to give up something you love but been able to kind of pick it up again is really interesting. And I'm sure we'll explore the theme of future accessibility with things like, you know, a new controller coming out shortly. Jay, I'm sure that a lot of the sort of the tech that both Vivek and Alice have mentioned is familiar to you and Smartbox. And I wonder if you could sort of go into a bit more sort of detail about the sort of the kind of products that you help people to kind of experience and search. And I guess as well, having looked at the Smartbox sort of service, part of that could be, I think, that theme that Vivek raised about getting technology that actually you're not sure it's going to work for you. That would be interesting as well. I think you've got some slides, so I'll let we'll help you share your screen as well. So thanks. Over to you, Jay.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, if we can share my screen, if possible, because it's not letting me at the moment. Hopefully. And thanks for that, Vivek, as well. I kind of want to pick your brains probably after this as well, in terms of gaming, because I'm a gamer myself, so it's always good to kind of find out what we need to do.
Yeah.
It's still not letting me share my screen at the moment for some reason. But if
Try now.
aha, there we go. Perfect. So, can you see my screen? Fab. So, kind of a real quick overview of who Smartbox is, who I am and who Smartbox is. So I've worked for Smartbox now for since 2017, and my role, as you said, is to go out and show people all the technology that we have and let them try it and see how they, how we can help them achieve what they need to achieve. And as a company, hopefully so we're based in the UK. We're based in the foot of the Malvern Hills in Worcester, and we make communication aids and we make software. We've got our Bristol-based software team, and then we've got a team based out in the US as well. And our equipment's available with basically in every country in the world, pretty much, by one of our partners. So it's really grown over the last few years. And it began about 20 years ago. When Paul sat on the left there on his motorbike, started the company on his kitchen table, as all great tech companies start up. And today there's almost 100 of us working to try and support our users as best we can. This picture was taken before the restrictions, but that's us in our Malvern office. And the main devices that we use, particularly for people who have muscle wasting conditions, are our grid pad devices. So we specialize in computer access. So when you might struggle with accessing a computer in the traditional way, a bit like you were saying, Alice, where you can't use a standard keyboard, or Vivek, you were saying you're having trouble with your mouse, we would use our devices like the GridPad 12 and the GridPad 15 to kind of make sure that we can find the best solution that lets you access what you were doing, whether that's work or school or just leisure and gaming. So we've made these devices. In fact, the GridPad 15 was only released yesterday lunchtime at 1 o'clock. So it's hot off the press, but these devices are designed to be rugged, all day battery life, so that actually, you can have this device, if it's mounted on your wheelchair, it'll be with you all day long. And you can use it to do lots and lots of different things. So the way that these devices are powered is by our software, which is called Grid. And people use these devices for a lot of different things. And I've kind of pulled out just a few on this side of different things that people use our devices for. So primarily we're a communications company. So for people that have no speech or difficult speech, they can use our devices to talk. But also they can connect up a mobile phone so that you can send text messages, turn your device into a loudspeaking, into a hands-free system. You can access Facebook and Twitter and all the things that you'd want to do on a normal device, but also with the added benefit of things like environment control. So our devices have got built-in infrared control, so you can turn your television on, you can control your lights, you can open your doors, and there's also radio control, so you can plug in a specific plug socket, which will mean you can turn on a fan or a Christmas tree, as I helped someone do in December last year. We set up all of their controls so that the young lad could get up in the morning and turn Christmas on before he would start doing anything else. So it's all about finding the solution for you. And kind of on that note, really, eye gaze is a big thing, but actually when we come out and see you, we bring a whole host of equipment to find the best solution. So eye gaze isn't for everybody. So people might be using switches. So I've seen a lot of users who have switches in all different areas, perhaps on their wheelchair, as in their headrest and things like that. Head pointers can be used, so you can put a small silver dot on your forehead, and as you move your head around, you move the mouse on the screen. We've got joystick control. So a lot of users who use powered wheelchairs have got joysticks that they use to drive their chairs around. Those same joysticks can be used to control the computer. So if you turn your driving mode off, you can then move your joystick around and your mouse will move around the screen. Okay, and Grid software is also has got some built-in voice activation as well. So there's lots of different access, and that's just a few of the different access methods. There are also EEG switches, Emg switches, lots of different technology that we can kind of talk you through. And the way that this works, kind of in the new normal, as the phrase that everyone keeps saying, is that we offer free visits. We can come and see you face to face. So we've been working really, really hard over the last few months to put in a safe visit process, so we can come out in full PPE and see you at home, so that you can try your devices out and try a lot of different equipment. If you feel like, actually, if you have a chat with us and you know what it is that you want to try after speaking to us, we can also do virtual visits. So we'll send a device out to your home. And if you've got an internet connection, we'll have a video call on Zoom or on Teams or whatever it is. We can then take control of the device, get you set up, and leave the device with you for a week. So you can kind of have a real good play with it. We're also doing, once coronavirus is kind of died down a little bit, we're offering access days. So we've done this a lot in schools, but this can be in any setting, where we'll come in and spend time with a group of you and let you try lots of different kits. So it might be at your local MDUK meetings or coffee mornings, or however you want to run it. We can come to you and bring all of our kit and try it in groups and let everyone have a go. We'll work with you individually as well, as I said, so we'll come to your house. We've got lots and lots of resources on the Smartbox website. So there's videos, training guides of how you can modify all of the software to suit your needs. So there's lots of resources available. So that's kind of an overview of me. So I will stop sharing my screen, if it'll let me. Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Jay.
that's
That was
an overview of Smartbox.
brilliant. Thank you so much, Jay. That was fascinating. I think that it's interesting. We've been in other seminars. We've been discussing the role of technology in helping people to access things like their consultant appointments, or having a kind of remote physio consultation. I hadn't thought about that angle of actually having someone come into your, be able to open up to people coming into your home. So it's fascinating to hear that you're offering that service with sort of PPE. That was really interesting. Thank you. Vedran, can I come to you next? And I confess that artificial intelligence and machine learning are still quite intimidating concepts to me. So perhaps you could outline sort of their relevance to people that potentially living with muscle wasting conditions. And also, I think you've had a role in the past working on wearable technology. So I'd be interested to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, hopefully it will be a little bit less intimidated for you after this seminar. So first of all, many thanks to Rob and for MDUK for the invitation for participation in this seminar. So as you said, kind of my role here as a panelist is to give a little bit different perspective. Again, perspective from the company, but compared to the Smartbox, one of the biggest technology companies in the world, HP. So first, just to make a clear differentiation between Hewlett Packard Enterprise and HP Hewlett Packard. So we were the one company until 2016 when we split it in two parts. So HP is the company which sells the business to consumers, so end user hardware, such as, for example, laptops or printers, while HP is in business to business transactions, meaning that we are providing technology to other businesses, which then create products and services on it. The most famous products from HP are servers, network devices, storage devices. Nevertheless, through as part of the changes that we are kind of seeing in the world all the time, HP is also kind of evolving from a company which only produces hardware into a company which combines hardware and services. So I come from the services part of HP. And my role is I'm leading the data analytics and AI practice here in UKNI. So the great position in which we are, we have a lot of this great hardware produced by HP, or also we kind of use a lot of public cloud services. There was a lot of mentioning of Microsoft, so a lot of our solutions are based on Microsoft Azure to create technologies which would then be used by other companies to help improve the world, either to help other businesses to be more efficient, or in this situation of assistive technologies, how to create technologies which will help to make a better society. So as you mentioned, one of the examples of the recent engagement we had with the Care UK, which is one of the biggest healthcare providers in Britain, is how to create the smart wearable device, so smartwatch, with capability of sending the data, so telemetry and data activities of the people, data about the heart rates, into the Azure cloud. Data is there analyzed, and based on the analysis of data in real time, we can create specific alerts. So this service is oriented towards elderly people. And one of the biggest problems elderly people have if they want to stay at home alone is if something happens with them, how to basically alert their families or their carers. And one of the most fatal situations in usually for the elderly people is if they fall, and then nobody knows they fell, and then this could lead to fatal outcomes. So what we did is we managed to create the innovation in a way that we trained the AI model to detect falls of those people based on the data which was coming for a smart watch. And why this was important for Care UK, because this enabled then those people to automatically be alerted from the perspective, either alerting their families or alerting Care UK that needs to send emergencies to their homes. So the innovation in the service was really how to detect that people really fell. So you don't want to have a lot of false negatives, meaning that you are detecting all the time that people fell, because this means that emergencies would go to the home all the time, and the relatives would be upset all the time. But from the other perspective, you don't want to miss really the event when people fell. So this was like the basic service. But also then additionally, as we could track the heart rate, for example, then you can profile the people on the average heart rate, and if there's outliers, then again you can send the message either to those people to ask them, are you feeling okay, or you need help, or if they need help, then you automatically alert Care UK or again their families. So hopefully this service is now being fully developed, and it's up to Care UK to bring it into the full production. So hopefully this will happen soon. One other thing which I would like to reflect in this, both from Alice's and Vivek's presentation, they said the speech-to-text technology is quite important to them. So we just finished one very interesting project we did for one of the Formula One teams, where they had a similar problem. So in the Formula One, there are 20 drivers, and those drivers communicate with the engineers in the pit stop. And in order to have a competitive advantage over the other teams, the Formula One teams want to act on the insights coming from the communication from other teams, basically almost in the real time. So what we did for this team is we built the capability to do high quality transcriptions in real time, and also do analysis of those texts in order to make strategic decisions. Although this was a technology we developed for Formula One, but then again, what we did, we improved the baseline model for the transcription. So again, this new model can now be used in other products and be used, for example, to enable more efficient and higher quality speech-to-text transcriptions by people with the muscle wasting conditions or other assistive technologies.
Thank you, Vedran. That was fascinating and really sort of useful insight. Just on the speech to text question, that was one of the questions we had in advance. So I'll turn now to questions. And yeah, like I say, a couple in advance. So someone's asked what sort of different speech to text software is available and what can be sort of trialed in advance. And I think I noticed that Vivek, you spoke a bit about speech to text as well. So perhaps any sort of insight from you about the speech to text software you use, and then Jay, perhaps I don't know if you're conscious of anything else that people could try out.
Yes, I will answer the question. I use the dictation software that's already on the computer through Microsoft. I have tried like Dragon software, but I didn't get on with it because it was quite difficult sometimes for it to pick up my voice, because I wear kind of a ventilator. My voice is very different. So the long gaps between my breathing, it didn't really recognize that I was speaking. It thought, so it kind of turned off. Whereas the one in Microsoft, it does stay on even though there's a long pause in between my. Yeah, so I think that's really helped me when I went to uni. I did a lot of dictation there. So, but yeah, I think speech to text is a good technology. It's getting a lot better. So yeah, I think it's a very good thing.
Jay, any kind of insight from you about what's available?
The only thing I would add really is there isn't too much text to speech built into Smartbox because it's predominantly generating speech. But as Vivek said, there's Dragon. Is obviously one of the most famous, but the built-in dictation on lots of things, like on Apple devices as well, the built-in dictation is quite good. And there's also a company called PC by Voice, which and then you have PC by Numbers as well. So it's voice dictation linked in with a Dragon software as well. That's a good one to look out for.
Great, thank you. And another question we had in advance was we've heard a few people mention eye gaze technology, and that can be really really transformational. But someone's highlighted that it's not a technology they're able to use, and whether there are any alternatives. And they've mentioned in particular an emotive headset. Is that something that any of the panel have got experience of? And what are the alternatives to eye gaze if that doesn't work for somebody?
Yeah, well, could I answer the question? Recently, I've used eye gaze kind of controlling the computer, and I've tried kind of the Tobii Eye Tracker 4C, but after about an hour, I was finding I was getting a kind of quite a bad headache because it's a lot of concentrating. But for the time I was using it, it is helpful, but there's kind of it depends on your ability. Really, with the eye gaze, you can use the eye gaze, Tobii eye gaze for gaming on the PC. There has a lot of kind of features on that would enhance the gaming, make it easier for you. So that's good. But I've not really kind of used eye gazing as the main form of control because I find it a bit kind of straining on my eyes. But I've got a lot of friends that kind of use it and they've had a pleasant experience with it, and it's really helpful. So I think it depends on the person.
And the only thing I would sort of add to that really is that eye gaze is one form, but there's also with Smartbox we've got access to 5 different eye trackers. So it might be that they've tried one particular type of eye gaze camera, but actually when we go out and see someone, we'll take a set with us because everyone's eyes are different, everyone's eyes are different shapes, and react differently with different cameras. So we'll always try more than one camera at a time because you know, you never know that the difference between the certain cameras can make a huge difference. But as I was saying earlier, the particular device that they mentioned in the question, we have kind of looked at that before and looked at working with them, because we're open to working with a whole range of different methods. But we haven't done anything with that specific device, but we have got a range of EEG and Emg switches that are very similar. So there's something called brain fingers that we use, which is a little headband that can sit around your forehead, which uses frequency to trigger a switch. So there's a whole host of different access methods, and quite often we'll turn up with all our kit, because even if someone says, I really want to try eye gaze, you might turn up and say, well, actually, you know what, you've done really, really well with a joystick, or you've done really, really well with a head pointer, or whatever it is. So it's always about just looking at the different options.
Great, thanks, Jay. We've had some fantastic questions in on the Q&A, so I'll start turning to those now. And I think the first one builds on points that Vivek, you made, and Jay, you've covered in some of the service that Smartbox offers. But the element to which getting the right technology is based on the user as well, and therefore any way other than trial and error to kind of be able to get the right technology. And I wonder if hear both of your experiences, then also Vedran, is that something that machine learning can help with in terms of sort of learning how somebody uses technology to help adapt for them as well? So Vivek, I think you might want to take that one first, and then I'll go around the panel.
Yes, well, yeah, that is a very good question. For me, it has very much been trial and error. I've called kind of certain environmental controls from the NHS, which, yeah, not with them, they use very kind of quite old technology that wasn't quite advanced enough. So I thought that I have to kind of research it myself on the computer and buy a lot of things to test out, because if you test it out at home, I find it's a lot easier to know exactly will it help or not. But if I went something else, because at home I've got a specific setup with like kind of the right table and my hands are all in the right position and things like that, so I decided trial and error was good. But I think recently there's been a lot more kind of help out there, so I think now I probably wouldn't be doing it so much trial and error. It would kind of be working together with like Smartbox or other kind of companies like that.
Yeah, and Vedran, yeah, that issue of kind of machine learning or AI, is that something that has potential to help kind of iterative development of technology?
Yes, and this is really one of the trends that we are seeing a lot now. This is personalization of everything. So also personalization of different products. So what does it mean, personalization? This means that initially when you buy the product, which is usually a combination of hardware and the software, is the same for everyone. But with the time, as users use the product, it can be configured in different ways. So one way is that you explicitly reconfigure it. But the other way, and this is how AI is used more and more, is that the software seamlessly learns about how you use the technology. And then through time, it sees that what are your patterns of usage, and also when you achieve better results, if this is possible to see when you are more successful in using technology, and then it adapts technology in a way that it reconfigures it in a way that it really fits your specific needs. And then additionally, if this piece of software is connected through internet with some kind of central place where all these different profiles of different users can be combined and analyzed, then by using the similar approach as, for example, Netflix is recommending which movies to watch, you can try to kind of adapt your settings based on identifying the similar settings of different people with the similar challenges or similar needs. And this is a really great example how data and AI can be used to improve technology.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Moving on to another sort of question we've had actually from a physio around some of the examples of assistive tech that we've explored. Are they available through any forms of this kind of support available through the NHS? And Jay, does Smartbox work with NHS as well?
Yeah. Yeah, we work closely with the NHS. So there's since 2016, there's been a dedicated NHS AAC kind of route, as well as an environmental control route as well. So there's specific funding for communication systems as well as environmental control and computer access. So there's hubs around the country, and this is purely NHS England. There's different funding in the devolved nations, but NHS England, the hubs are based around the country, and they will work kind of with us and with other suppliers, and they will go out and do those assessments of individuals, and then they will find the solution that works best for that individual, and then they can provide it. There's criteria that have to be met, so it's done on an individual basis for that particular user, but there is funding available now for environmental controls as well as computer access.
Great, thank you very much. We had a really sort of interesting question early up about, and I'm just about to lose my camera as I try and read the question, apologies everybody, around kind of robotic meter readers. Are they like smart meters, and how can they be used? Does anyone have any experience of those on the panel? This may be a good example of where we need to do some research and come back to people offline. So thanks for the question. That was useful. Another question we had in was around the degree to which sort of the software and hardware around speech to text software makes a difference. So things like the microphone and the sound card. So do people need to kind of look at their whole system if they're looking at something like speech to text technology, and how can they kind of go about doing that?
Yes. So as I said, we just had this recent example of developing these solutions for the formal team, and really we had a lot of iterations of the cycles how to improve the word error rate. So kind of the initial model which we built was the error rate around 35%, and the final model which we developed was around 15%, which is basically today the state of the art. And we tried a lot of things in the process of improvement. Majority of those things is really how you select and label the data for the training. But one of the things which impacted the result was also the quality of recordings we used, because initially we used the compressed audio, and the results were poorer. When we started to use the audio of the higher quality, which wasn't compressed, it had the positive impact. Also, currently, speech to text services really evolved quite a lot in the recent 2-3 years. And currently, we are not talking only about the speech to text recognition, but what you can do is also differentiate between speakers and also profile the speakers. So, for example, one of the new services which Microsoft launched as a part of their Azure Cognitive Services is profiling of the speaker, meaning that the machine will be able to understand who is speaking, not only what is being told. But the reason why this is not still in broad usage is because it's really sensitive on the microphones that you're using for the profiling. So you really need to have really high quality Microsoft equipment in order that you can be profiled, but this will also change in furious time. So I would say in 1 year or 2 years, this is going to be the service which is going to be accessible with the normal end user hardware.
Fantastic, thanks Vedran. We've had a great question around the role of MDUK actually in terms of signposting people to technology or technology options. I think that's really a really good point. And Jay, you mentioned our things like our muscle groups, our local meetings. I think one of the things that we do try and do with our sort of physical events is bring technology providers to meet people and to understand more. I think kind of particularly as we are able to restart our muscle groups either virtually on a regional level or when we get to do them physically again, I think we'll be looking to explore what themes people want, and it feels like assistive tech will be one of those. Alice, I know that in the past you've attended open days to sort of help talk about assistive tech, and what did you find those quite valuable, and kind of what do people sort of get out of those when we're able to give that kind of advice?
Yeah, I think they are quite valuable, and obviously we've been lucky enough to have Smartbox with us at some of those events, and they tend to bring some bits of equipment with them so that people can sort of see them in action, as it were, and then obviously you've got experts on hand, as well as ourselves to MDUK to be able to answer any questions that people might have about them.
Great, thanks, Alice. And we've had a really interesting question around sort of the progressive illnesses, and that's often the nature of muscle wasting conditions in particular. And I'd be interested to hear a bit of explanation about if people aren't able to. We've sort of touched a bit with the eye gaze, but more broadly, are there sort of things around sort of brainwave technology that can help people who are becoming increasingly sort of locked in, is the phrase that the question is used?
Yeah, so as I say, eye gaze is one option, but it's not the only option. So there's a range of different sort of Emg switches that you can wear that will detect those signals, those alpha and beta signals that will then activate, so you can scan through a keyboard or scan through the options and make those selections. So there's the thing I would say is that there's not been many people that we've seen where there isn't some form of access. So it's very rare that we can't find something that will work for somebody. It might not be eye gaze, but it might be something completely different that they've not tried before.
Thank you. Another question, quite a specific question around experience of smart doorbells and door locks. And Vivek, I've had the privilege of coming to you up in Leicester to visit you. I'd be interested to hear kind of, do you use that kind of technology yourself in terms of people coming to visit you at the house and things, and what else might be available?
Well, no, I don't use that equipment because I've got my mum for that. She's my smart doorbell, so but I think if people were living independently, I think that would be a really, really important thing to be able to let people in, and that as well. Yeah. So I think it depends on people's living situations and what things they can do or can't really. But I have seen the growth of smart equipment.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it, that some of the things that have developed, so that I guess Ring doorbells that are kind of now a mainstream technology.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps they were developed originally for kind of the assistive tech. I think how things become mainstream. Jay, do you see quite a lot of that actually in terms of the utilization of equipment that was perhaps originally intended for very specific measures, then suddenly hits the mainstream?
Yeah, and it's really good. Like, that's kind of what we want, is the more mainstream tech that we can integrate, the better, because it's more widely available. It's more supported. You know, things like integrating with Amazon devices and things. The more we can go mainstream, the easier it is for everybody. And we so things like Ring Doorbell, there's a Windows desktop app for that, so that will integrate with our software. So if the door rings, it will pop up on your computer and you can unlock your door, and if you've got a door opener installed, that's controllable as well, so you can see someone and you can actually physically open the door and let them in. But the more mainstream, the better.
Now, talking about mainstream stuff, Amazon Alexa, well, I use that to call people if if someone's in the garden, my mum's in the garden, I could call them, or just a friend or whatever. So that is very useful for me. And I think equipment for disabled people kind of needs to be kind of widespread and used for not just disabled people, because a lot of the equipment, disabled equipment, can be quite expensive to get. So if it's in the mainstream, it'll just be easier to use and adjust and find kind of helpful for using those types of equipment.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting, is that sort of concept of things sort of jumping over from sort of for specific groups over into the mainstream. I was really fascinated by something early on in the COVID pandemic. a blog by a disabled person who spoke about how for years they'd been told they couldn't appear on panels at conferences because there was no way they could dial in remotely. And now all of a sudden we're all holding events like this. So perhaps if there's one good thing that comes out of COVID, it's that actually things like this happen more often and far more accessible, and equally that the products that perhaps have been developed become actually just inbuilt and a part of the. And Vedran, is that something that with the companies you work with that you're seeing more of, that people actually want to build in accessibility from the beginning so that they're far more open to everybody?
This is quite interesting question for the discussion, and I think just to kind of follow up on the comments made by Jay about how new technologies either appear in the specific specialized needs and then become mainstream, or they first become mainstream and then are specialized for a specific assistive. It's quite interesting interplay, but very important factor here is openness of technology. And I see also one of the question is about Apple Watch, and they also have their own heart rate monitor for fall detection. The thing is that, for example, Apple, it's not very open from a perspective of enabling other companies to use this functionality that they have embedded in their products in order to build their own products on top of it. So basically, this is concept of a platform. So basically, some of the products, such as, for example, Ring, they became mainstream and proliferated because they opened and they enable integration with Amazon Alexa, with Apple Smart Home, with Google Home. So this made them so popular, and this basically boosted the selling. Where some other products, such as, for example, a lot of these functionalities enabled by Apple, but also Google now, is that they only monetize it through their own products, meaning that, for example, Care UK couldn't use the fall detection capability which you can use as Apple end user, because there is no programmatic interface how they could stream the data. So this is one thing. The other thing is, especially when we are talking about the AI models, is that it's not the same way how, for example, the average people, the young people fall and the elderly people fall. So for this service, which we tailored for the elderly people, we had to train it on the historic data, on the real examples of elderly people falling. So again, there is a question about generalizability and speciality of specific technology. And I would say this is not only the question of technology, this is also a lot of question of the business models of the companies, how they drive it. Because now also, yeah, you mentioned the COVID, we have this big debate about track and trace applications. And then firstly, the UK wanted to develop its own. Now they say we are going to use from Google and Apple. Why they didn't use before? Why they didn't open their APIs? And what is basically the consequence of using the Apples and the Googles, not their own? So it's a lot of interplay here between the biggest players in the arena.
Thank you very much. So we're moving into our sort of final few minutes, which is a real shame, because this is where we could talk for a lot longer, I think, about all these themes that have emerged. I'd be really interested, I think I'll start with you, Vivek, if that's okay. In terms of the user of accessible and assistive tech, what would your hope be over the next sort of 1 to 5 years of the kind of products that might continue to develop? What do you think would be next to be unlocked by assistive tech?
Well, I think what Vedran said about different companies' business models is quite true, because if I go back to gaming, Microsoft and Xbox are very open with accessibility and kind of listening to disabled gamers, whereas PlayStation's like these, there's a bit of a barrier for them, because they have a business model where they kind of want to use a lot more new technology in their products. So I hope in the next 5 years there'll be a lot more kind of open business models, because assistive technology shouldn't kind of just be a company thing. It's accessibility is a bit like usability, and be kind of able to use your life independently, so you don't really want restrictions on using technology that works for you. So I think I'd like that to change, but I can see a lot of change in kind of attitudes towards like there's a lot more opportunities for companies to create assistive technology through like Amazon Alexa or Google Home. And so I think the technology is advancing, so I can see quite a promising future really for the kind of disabled equipment.
Thanks for that. That's brilliant. I think that throughout all these seminars, I think we're going to try and build a sense of the themes that have come out. And actually a very strong one in the past 10, 50 minutes has been that mainstream availability of development. So they're kind of available to everyone. That's, I think it's a key point. Jay, that's the same question to you, but I guess what kind of equipment are you excited about that you might be able to be providing over the next 2-3 years?
It's really tricky, isn't it? It's just trying to keep on the cusp of it, really, and looking. We're always looking at what's on the horizon and what technology might be coming, so that we can develop that. So, as an example, myself and a colleague last January went to CES out in Las Vegas, the technology show, and we spent the whole time just exploring all the new little startup companies that have got lots of different bits, and how we could potentially integrate some of that into our work and into Smartbox. And so it's just constantly keeping an eye out and making sure that we're watching what the mainstream tech companies are doing, and how we can integrate that within Smartbox. And it's just going back to those core values of kind of independence. So how can we make sure that somebody using our device can be as independent as possible for as long as possible? That's the main goal, basically.
Fantastic. And Vedran, so finally to you, kind of what excites you about this field over the next sort of 2-3 years?
Yeah, firstly, I need to say that I completely agree with Vivek and Jay. I think it's a responsibility of all of us, of the companies, but also governments and academia, to see how we can bring the technology innovation faster to not only market from the perspective of selling technology, but specifically in assistive technology. I really believe that this technology should be accessible for end users who need it, meaning that the government should find the ways how this is basically free or almost free for the end users. Because always development on new technology, it costs, it's a big cost of R&D. But here, if the good framework is done, especially today when the technological advancements are very, very, very fast. I just gave the example of speech to text, where 2-3 years ago you couldn't use those services really to provide high level type of outputs. Today it's real-time, seamless, high level service. So I think the real goal of all of us should be how to create the environment in which we could accelerate the creating and putting those services in the mainstream, specifically in the assistive technology mainstream. And I really believe that AI and data will have a pivotal role there.
Thank you very much. And Vedran, I think you'll be pleased to hear that I'm slightly less intimidated now by machine learning and AI after this hour. So thank you very much.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. I think unfortunately that brings us to the end of our time. It's been a fascinating discussion. I'd really like to thank our panel, Vedran, Jay, Vivek, and Alice. Thank you so much. There's been some real sort of food for thought in the questions, and some really, really good questions and comments in the Q&A function. A reminder that there's a few more of these seminars in the series between now and October, and jump on our website to see anything else you'd like to access. And we'll also be in touch with a short survey to get some feedback on today's session, because hopefully we can develop these further and meet the needs of our community. But thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you to the panel. Hugely appreciate your time, and have a good evening, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.